anatomical landmarks. I said that we are in the transperitoneal wall, the right side, so it's not mandatory to find the column. You have just to deal with a thin layer of the peritoneum covering the lower part of the kidney. It's not necessary to go immediately in contact with the kidney. What we have to do is to find the wall of the ureter. So you have duodenum, which is here, covering the anterior part of the vena cava. I said that duodenum you have to be very, very safe because you have to avoid any risk of coagulation in contact with duodenum, which could be dramatic in the outcomes. And we have to find the ureter. And so on this side, so we have liver, which is here. We have ureter, which is going to join the pelvis. We have lower part of the kidney, and I said that it's not mandatory to go in contact with the kidney itself. And we have just to enlarge a little bit the space of the ureteral approach to give you a way of ureteral mobilization at the time of the suture. So Christian says that we have to avoid as much as possible direct contact between the laparoscopic grasper and the ureter to avoid risk of structure. And you can note that this laparoscopic dissection is a very nice one because it's very precise thanks to the quality of the cameras and thanks to the very precise and atraumatic gestures that you can perform with your laparoscopic dissection. You recognize exactly the same technique of pushing away the structures covering the pelvis to get free anterior and posterior part of the pelvis. Here we have a very small crossing vessel. It's not a big one, but of course we have to try to preserve it at the maximum. But this vessel is not at the origin of the pelvic obstruction. And the next step will be to divide the ureter. You have to let a small part of the ureter fixed on the junction to be sure of the normal aspect of the ureter at this place where you will perform the pieloplasti later. So we perform a complete division of ureter. We let the ureter its normal position, and we will go back to later to perform a spatulation. We develop a little bit more the pelvic approach to be sure of the freedom of anterior and posterior edge of the pelvis. And now we have to decide the place of the pelvic resection, and we think that it's not mandatory to perform a too large resection because you have the risk of pelvic retraction in the inner part of the kidney, and it will be difficult to find the limit of the pelvis for the laparoscopic pieloplasti later. So we remove the small specimen. We perform a spatulation exactly like Christian said, between two small graspers to give you exposure. This spatulation is performed on the posterior limit of the ureter, and we say that usually the length of the spatulation is between 1 and 1.5 centimeters, no more. So job of pieloplasti is starting now. So we start with the lower angle of the pelvis, and it will be the first stitch, very important one, starting outside in on the pelvis and going inside out in the ureter. So it's a steel monochrome, so you are going to observe in this movie that we have to do to get more simple the job of pieloplasti. That means that every time you have to prepare the stitch in a good position because your only mobilization with the laparoscopy, it's mobilization of your hand, and so every time you have to have a reflection about the ideal situation of the needle to be sure that your mobilization of the hand will be sufficient to give a simple passage of the needle. So it was inside out ureter, and so now we are going to prepare the first laparoscopic knot. And this point is very important because it gives you the axe of the structure between ureter and pelvis. So we have to be sure of the complete contact between the two structures. And we complete with a third and a fourth loop. And we can divide the stitch after the fourth loop. So in this movie, I'm going to show you the technique of interrupted stitch, but I completely agree. You can start with the running structure if you are used. That means that on this side, you will start with the posterior pelvis first, and then running during the posterior limit of ureter and pelvis. So in this movie, I prefer to use interrupted stitch. So the second one is interrupting the posterior limit of the pelvis first, outside in. And so you are going to see, I change the sense of the needle. I give a good exposure of the ureter. I find the orifice of the ureteral ligament. And very simply, I have just to turn the hand, and the needle is going to exit exactly at the place that I want to. So laparoscopic noting, so we are going to train with this technique during the lab session. It's not difficult, just to understand some basic concepts of the laparoscopic noting, and then we will be able to perform this kind of note everywhere and in any kind of situations. So it's the second one. The third one will be to reinforce the resistance of the lower implantation of the ureter. So I mean we started pelvic outside in, and now ureter inside out. And on the same way, you check that the needle exiting in a good place. And at the end of this step, you have a very strong and good quality of anastomosis between the ureter and the pelvis. And so it will be possible to move to the next step, which will be closing the higher part of the pelvis and placing the double G-stent. So we can be satisfied with the quality of the lower part of the ureteral implantation, and now we are going to start closing the pelvis. So for the pelvic suture, we use the same stitch, and we are going to start with the technique of running suture at this place. So posterior limit outside in, interior limit inside out. We close the superior angle of the pelvis. So we use the assistant of the assistant, you can observe. So we are going to divide the small part of the stitch to avoid disturbing between too many stitches visible in the field. So we divide the smaller one, And now we give to the assistant the longer one, and holding the stitch, your assistant is giving you a very good exposure of the both edge of the pelvis, and so you can observe that it's very easy to define exactly the place of your pelvic suturing. So it's just a problem of exposure to be comfortable and safe in this laparoscopic suture. It's not so difficult to perform the suture itself, it's more difficult to have good exposure. So we give again stitch to the assistant, and progressively we are going to reduce the pelvic opening aspect, reduce just to give a place for the stent placement. So I think that we are going to stop now. So we are going to close the running suture at this time. Time, and we are going to stop the running suture and to keep the loop to give us a good exposure for the placement of the guide and the body stand. So we use a vascular guide, which is name is Terimo guide. I think it's the best one because it's very smooth and atraumatic and very easy to place and to guide in the aorta. So this guide is introduced by the upper port and move with the two hands of the surgeon. You can observe that the assistant is giving us a good exposure with the loop of the previous suture, and progressively you push the guide, and you have no risk of urethral injury with this kind of very smooth quality of guide. And at the time you feel resistance, I mean that you are in the bladder, and we push away the double G stent on the guide. We push the stent. It's exactly the same technique described by Christian out of the difference. So as soon as you observe the distal part of the stent, you can remove the guide. And now you just to place the tip of the double G in the pelvis and to achieve suture of the anastomosis. So you catch a loop, you enlarge opening of the pelvis, and you let the double G going in a good place, and so you have just to achieve. You can use each kind of technique that you prefer, running suture, interrupted stitch, as you want, but this part of technique is not specific, and it's a unique dependence of your habitudes. So I would like to show you just the final aspect, because this part of the movie is without interest. So at the end, you have to check that you have a complete suturing between the pelvis and the aorta. And you can observe that the final aspect is exactly that you could wish in open surgery. That means a very selective anastomosis between pelvis and the aorta, and without any dissection of the around instructions. So it is one of the advantages of laparoscopic approach. You can go in a targeted surgery without a large dissection for the exposure. I would like